back to a new video in which we are going to discuss about socks. As you know, socks are a pretty important part of Lolita fashion, and there are different kinds of socks, and we will just quickly go through um, just like the terminology of socks that you should know, and also the material is quite important in how the sock is going to behave. Well, basically, the properties of the socks are dependent on the material and how the sock is made. So basically, socks that you have in Lolita fashion are usually just normal ankle socks, and usually the ankle socks have some sort of little like frill onto them like this, just like a lace detail on the ankle part or on the cuff of the sock, so that it doesn't look like a normal sock essentially. Usually there might be like a little bow detail like this one has, and the brand socks usually have like a knitted brand logo also on the socks. But anyway, ankle socks are um, pretty common in Lolita fashion, and also knee-high socks, which are sometimes referred to as OTKs, so over the knees, or UTKs, which refers to under the knee socks. Um, OTKs usually, especially when it comes to brands, are not on the Western foot necessarily actually coming over the knee. Um, and since I have pretty thick feet, I will include some measurements later on, so you have something to compare to. Um, and I feel like sometimes the like brand socks from Japan are not really a nice fit, and especially as of late, I feel like the brand socks have been like decreasing in quality and in stretchiness, especially, which results in problems when trying to put on the sock. But anyway, so there are ankle socks and over to knee socks. I think the biggest thing that influences the fit of the sock is the material. So if the material is cotton or like natural fiber or synthetic fiber, I don't think that has that much of an effect on the sock. But if it doesn't have any elastic in it or spandex, or I think there are different kinds of names for the material, but in Finland we call it elastane, which is basically the like stretchy kind of like rubber band consistency of a fiber that makes clothing more stretchier. And these are Angelic Pretty socks that are pretty old. I have had these for many years, like I think ever since like almost my beginner years. So these are like almost 10 years old, and these are still in very good condition, and these are like cotton, but I think there is some like elastane in these, which make them quite stretchy and really comfortable to wear. I have a newer version of Angelic Pretty socks I bought these I think maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago or something like that. These are synthetic fiber, and these feel much thicker. Um, and these are not as stretchy, but this is not the worst stretch in Angelic Pretty socks. And yeah, these still fit my leg. There are different reasons what makes the sock stretch or not stretch as much. And as I mentioned, elastane is one of those. But then there is also how the sock is made. And there are different kinds of socks. For example, in these two, the pattern is kind of knitted onto the sock, so that when you look on the inside, you can see kind of the different kinds of like threads that it's kind of like changing here, and that it's kind of like the lighter material that is like most of the sock, or the base of the sock, is somehow like somewhat running through the pattern, so that it's in this sock it's not as visible. But let me see if there is another sock that would. Okay, in these Metamorpho socks you can see that the like white is running through the pattern on the back side of the sock, which can restrict the sock's stretchiness quite a lot. And usually this kind of like pattern sock that has like a simple pattern on the front or on the back aren't usually as restrictive as the ones that have like a pattern going kind of like on a diagonal angle like this. In this case, in this sock, this is still quite stretchy, but usually if there is like a pattern that goes around the sock, that might be quite restrictive, because the way that the sock is knitted is not as stretchy, and that should be taken into consideration when producing the sock. But sometimes brands don't really do that, I think. Overall, in brand socks, if there is a lot of pattern all over the sock, it's usually less stretchy than a sock like this that has pattern only on the front or only on the back. And I think I bought the Happy Garland socks, and those were so tight that I couldn't even like get them over my ankle, because they were so small and so full of the pattern that it didn't really stretch like almost at all. So there are also different kinds of socks. There are like plain socks that don't really have any pattern onto them, and then there are the pattern socks that have like that change the color. When you look on the inside there, you can see that it's like using different colors of threads for the pattern. And then there are like digitally printed socks that are only like printed, the pattern is only printed on the like surface of the fabric. So when you look on the inside, you can see that it's like white or black, or like whatever is the base color of the fabric that is used on the sock. So in terms of stretchiness, the plain sock is usually the best. It doesn't really because it doesn't have any pattern, so it's like very easy to use, easy to pair with coordinates. But sometimes it can get a bit boring maybe, so you might want to have a pattern sock like this. But then if it has too much pattern, then it might be too restricting, or feel too tight on your leg, or it might not even go onto your leg if there is too much pattern and the design of the sock or the measurement of the sock is too small. These kind of digitally printed socks are usually easier to make in a bigger size, and usually stretch quite a lot, because it's pretty much the same as a plain sock, but it only has the color on the surface. But what is the problem with these socks is that when you stretch it, the pattern kind of fades out, and you can see that it's only printed on the surface of the fabric, because you can see kind of the base color of the fabric kind of like shining through in between the knitted loops of the sock. And yeah, that's why I personally don't really like digitally printed socks. Especially in darker colors. If the base color of the fabric is white, it's gonna look really bad. And I feel like the pattern usually on these are not as nice looking when it's on the foot or on your leg. These socks that are from a Taobao brand, Rosie Roji, or like Chinese brand, and in this the same thing also happens, that the like pattern kind of fades out when you stretch it, so the pattern can look kind of wonky on your foot. But in these lighter colors, I don't think the pattern looks as bad as in the darker colors, but I still feel like I don't usually like go for these kind of socks because I just like have a personal problem with them. um, but yes, there are like different quality differences between socks like this, like digitally printed socks. And I think I have these Baby the Starshine Bright socks that are also digitally printed, but I think these don't have as much stretch, so the pattern doesn't really suffer as much when it's stretching out, because it cannot kind of stretch out as much. But that's about the digitally printed socks. So differences between brands, I'm gonna talk about Angelic Pretty, Metamorphose, and Baby the Starshine Bright. um, I think all of these socks, or like all of these brands, are capable of making socks that fit my leg. But if you have any thicker leg than I have, then it might be a bit problematic. Especially with these are Baby the Starshine Bright socks that have this kind of like lace detail onto them. Um, these are quite restrictive. Um, these are quite tight on me, so it's really like it's dependent on you. I don't like very tight socks. They make me feel very uncomfortable. Um, but I know that there are some people who don't really like mind that as much as I do, so you can take that into consideration and like take my word with a grain of salt. Also, Metamorphose socks. This sock is synthetic fiber, but this does have quite a lot of stretch. So what you really should consider is the pattern of the sock, and also how the pattern is kind of placed on the sock. If it's going around it, kind of like a ivy or some sort of like plant, that might be really restrictive or like really tight. But if it's only on one part of the foot going like straight down or like straight around, that might not be as big of a problem. But I would be careful about socks that have patterns that go like horizontally around the sock, because those might be tighter on the area where the pattern goes around, depending on how it's made. But usually like separate patterns that go vertically on the sock is more likely to fit bigger foot or light leg than the one that has a pattern that goes around. um, Especially if it goes like diagonally like this. I have Sock Dream socks that have like horizontal stripes that don't restrict the pattern at all. It's how the sock is made. So horizontal stripe is okay, but if it's diagonal like this, it might cause the sock to be much more tighter. I think that's like all about the kind of like technical side of the sock. I have a couple of like additional opinions or like experiences that I have had. Is that like brand socks have a lot of variation to them, And I have these Angelic Pretty socks that have this kind of, they are just plain one color sock, but they have this kind of like a 3D pattern onto them, and this pattern does cause the sock kind of not stretch as much as it would if it was just plain sock. Also, it might be that the sock is kind of just designed a bit smaller, so I'm not sure exactly if it's dependent on the pattern or just the design. Might be both, to be honest. But sometimes even plain socks by brands are not as big as something that they have previously done. So depending on the design and like, I don't know, just on the batch, it might be a bit different from what they have previously done. If Angelic Pretty socks once fit you, the next sock that they come up with might not fit you. So I cannot really promise you or guarantee you that Angelic Pretty socks will always fit you, because there are so many like variables and different kinds of things that affect the fit of the sock. There are different like aspects to the socks that make them fit to your leg more likely, but it doesn't like 100% guarantee that the design of the sock is wide enough to fit your foot or leg. But usually plain socks over patterned socks, and like vertical or horizontal stripes over diagonal stripes, or like vertical pattern versus or over like all over patterns, or like horizontal patterns. I think that's like the biggest kind of like guideline that I can give you, that you can consider whether if the sock will fit you. I have experience in different kinds of sock brands that I have tried during my almost 10 years of Lolita fashion that I've been dressing up. Is that I usually tend to go towards brand socks because they are high quality, and since I know and I am in the lookout of the certain pattern or like certain aspects of the sock that I can like kind of see if the sock will fit me. And usually if I go to Japan and I go to the store, I usually just like try and stretch it out and see how stretchy the fabric is. You don't have to necessarily see the like cuff of the sock, but also you can do it on the body of the sock and see like how much stretchiness it has to it. There is the brand called Roji Roji that I had the printed socks from, this one. They have different kinds of socks actually. These are just like plain socks from Roji Roji. These socks fit me, but there was this one, it's like this marshmallow kind of like diagonal stripe sock that did not fit me. That was very sad because I was really looking forward to them, and I have always wanted to have kind of like diagonal stripe, like cotton candy stripe socks, but those were so tight on my leg that I just couldn't bring myself to wear those. But my friend who has like maybe around same size as my leg, or a bit bigger even, she has no problem wearing those. And she actually said that like those have kind of stretched out and kind of like widened in wear, so socks do have a tendency to loosen up. Elastane or spandex will kind of like give in to the stretch of the foot. But there is a limit, especially when it comes to knitted socks like these, that have a pattern to them, that if you stretch it too much, the pattern will start to kind of like break, so that the like color change on the side of the pattern or on the like edge of the pattern will kind of like almost come undone. I have seen this happen in Angelic Pretty socks. It's either that the sock or the pattern is so bad quality that the like pattern doesn't really like endure any stretch to it, which makes it kind of like come undone, or that like just the person who is using is having too big foot or like leg to wear that kind of like specific sock, so that it's causing too much pressure onto the sock, so that the sock will just like the pattern will break because of the like too large leg inserted into the sock. But it's like I haven't ever experienced that myself, so I cannot really give you any details on that. There is also this like American brand, I think it's Enchanted Dream Labyrinth or something. I will check the name and put the like actual name on the screen. I have a couple of socks from them, these two, and these do fit me. These are quite long, and if you have thicker leg, these are like almost a bit too long, especially for me because I am quite short. So these are really long, and they will come like over the knee, but they're kind of too tight on the like on the cuff area to actually comfortably wear on my thigh. I also did buy like this like rose vine pattern sock that had like a this like rose plant going around diagonally on the sock. I think it went like even like crisscross on the front or something. And those I couldn't wear those. Like those were too tight, and I luckily was able to sell them to another person who hopefully was able to fit those in her onto her leg. But yeah, I think that's everything about socks. um yeah, I think that's like most of the things that I wanted to say. I hope whoever wished for this video is finding this video helpful, or has provided some new information what to consider when buying socks. Please let me know if there is something more that you would like to know. I can always answer to questions in the comment section, or if you want to have a new video about like something specific, then like I can see what I can do. And yeah, with that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and we will see you next time. Bye!